you all for being here. There we go. Let's see. Acknowledge that. Okay. Today's the last meeting in which I serve as chair, and I want to thank a number of people and acknowledge some of the work we've done together. My wife, Lainey, gets a lot of credit for listening, being candid with me, and supporting the work required to maintain the chair and vice chair briefly for 4 years. My fellow officers have served the community first throughout the last 4 years, and my thanks go out to Larry Glickman, Kathy Benneth, Brendan Beaujeu, who served in the first and early second terms, and to Tracy Houth, Dave Benneth, and for the whole run of my work on the NCAC, Chris Silkowski. Thank you, as you have been valuable colleagues helping resolve numerous challenges, especially in the last 2 years. These neighbors of us all have committed to understanding more about land use and the public meeting process in order to serve this community. These officers have applied the diligence they came to through their professional work and made it a priority to get things right time after time in some challenging situations. Many thanks and warm hugs to you all who have served in this role. I think it's important to remember that during the last 4 years, the NCAC was transformed into a larger public body because of what was required to happen, in great part due to the pandemic. The meeting in which I was elected in June of 2019 was live at the fire hall with about 35 people in attendance and no competition for the seats of chair and treasurer. Chris and I were elected and things went as they had with a reasonably small attendance, including the same 10 people, quote unquote, who do a lot around this community in attendance. When the pandemic hit in February 2020, in-person meetings were curtailed by law. It took a few months to discover Zoom, and thanks go out to Brenda Freshman, who had a Zoom account through her UC Long Beach professor position. The NCAC ran the first few meetings on Brenda's account. Brenda also stepped up to help organize the community plan, answering a call for volunteers to the membership, offering her expertise in survey design and analysis. Chris, Brenda, and I have met weekly for most of the last 3 years, organizing the informational town halls, which we conceived of as a way to educate the NCAC membership about state land use planning goals and how they apply to our community. Together, we had identified experts in state land use goals subject by subject through the offices of Sarah Absher at the county, contacts with OSU who had helped on prior studies by the NCAC, and the Neskowin Sand Lake Watershed Council. We addressed topical subjects, adding a few town halls focused on fire safety during the dry summers, and sharing the importance of the Hawk Creek watershed and our Neskowin Regional Water District personnel and their board. Those informational town halls are available within the community plan survey, so you can reference them to help answer questions while taking the survey. We also discovered the technical capabilities locally here of volunteer Biff Schlichtine, who worked with Chris Silkowski to host Zoom calls and set up the NCA website for the first time. Previously, all information of the NCAC was posted on the Neskowin Community Association website. That site with both organizations on it was confusing, and the NCAC had more and more content to share. We also worked with Biff and Michael Schlichtine to promote signing up Neskowin community members to an email list to reach as many folks as we could with NCAC information. The county also facilitated the mailing of all those requests to be a part of the mailing list. Michael contributed a print of one of his paintings as a raffle prize, and we gathered over 730 email addresses to send out notices and documents. The administrative position of communications coordinator was approved at the last general meeting, which helps to clarify the responsibilities of the secretary and officer. and the communications coordinator who serves as a volunteer administrator. The overall results of these changes have been significantly higher attendance, from 40 to over 100 in attendance regularly, and a higher engagement, which is state planning goal number 1. As the community plan has evolved, we're closing in on the completion of the community plan survey, and then we'll begin public meetings where all of you are encouraged to attend and discuss and come to shared conclusions regarding revisions to the 1999 Neskowin Community Plan. I am leaving the collegiality of the officers, but it is my intention and desire to continue to serve the community with a focus on the community plan, which Chris and I currently co-chair. Community plan is the expression of the values of this community, and that work will be my focus until it is completed. I also have to acknowledge that the group of people who often disagreed with the leadership of the NCAC have run a very well-organized and rational opposition to numerous ideas before the NCAC. And I hope that through finding more common ground than not, the intellectual and organizing capabilities of these neighbors will be valuable in creating a community plan that we all have contributed to and can be proud of. Finally, thanks to you, the community, for your attendance and engagement in this process. I appreciate the passion and thought-provoking criticism rendered throughout the last few years. You are the reason we do the work and put the meetings together. So with that, I will turn over the meeting to Sarah Absher. She's slated for a little further down the agenda, but I'd like Sarah to provide some information to everyone at the beginning of this meeting. So go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you, Randall, and good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to see you all this morning. So I wanted to visit with the community before the meeting gets underway. Want to thank everyone who has continued to reach out to me the last couple of months and share with me your thoughts and your concerns and your positive feedback about the short-term rental process, the CAC, and other matters that are important to your community. I want to thank the CAC officers and thank you for your service during this last term. I want to talk to the community as a whole about the challenges as serving as a CAC officer. Had the pleasure of working with all of the CACs for over 15 years now and have been your liaisons throughout this time. Fulfilling these positions is not easy, and they often come with challenges and criticism. I would urge this community today and moving forward in the future to give your officers grace. The times that we have important issues through the county, some we know about, and sometimes there's issues or challenges we don't know about, require a significant amount of work from your officers. And while some community members may not agree with the work or actions of officers, I know that they always do their best. So thank you, officers. To address the short-term rental process, I want to be clear that I did share updates with Randall, that he was on the email listserv, and that Hillary did serve very well as a member of the committee along with Hillary and Scott. Neskowin had great representation through that process. But what I would also like to share is that because of the community as a whole being very divided on this issue, and I am very concerned about the health of the community of Neskowin at this time. This is one of those unfortunate examples of how the division within the community resulted in a communication breakdown amongst community members. And I urge all of you to start thinking about how relationships can be strengthened moving forward. Neskowin is a very special community, and the common thread I know that you all share is how much you love and care about this community. I do too, which is why I feel compelled to speak today about my concerns and to urge again everyone to find a way to move forward together as a community and as a CAC. There will be more issues and there are going to be more challenges. The community cannot continue to be divided. The role of the CACs. So the CACs were created in the late 1990s, early 2000s by my predecessor, Vic Apalter. And over the years, there have been directors between he and I who did not value or find value in the CAC organizations for unincorporated communities. I wholly disagreed and have been committed since the day I walked into this department to continue Vic Apalter's work to make sure that these CACs were able to run, be organized, and have a voice for unincorporated communities. The CACs were created by board order to specifically address land use related matters. And this is part of the goal 1 element of the statewide comprehensive plan and is part of the county's comprehensive plan. I want to be clear that the limitation and the commitment of goal 1 largely speaks to the public notice process that we do to adjacent neighbors when there's a land use application under review, or if the county is going through some sort of land use overhaul, creation of citizen involvement committees. And again, Tillamook County really wants these CACs. We appreciate you, we appreciate the work you do, and we appreciate your collective voice. Because of the health of the community though, and what I have seen this last year, I'm to a point to where I feel like if this does not change, I need to have a tough conversation with the Board of County Commissioners about how the CAC is functioning. And I do not want to do that. It is important to all of us that this community continue to be heard, that you can find a place to work together, and that there's a collective opportunity to speak to various issues throughout the county. I would encourage you all to move past the short-term rental process. It is coming to a close. Again, I want to thank you all for your participation, for your feedback, but this is something that we collectively have to move away from and focus on other important matters that are also part of your community and things that we must start working on. And one of those is the community plan updates. I'm excited to see this process kick off with committee groups so that we can dive into the great work and continue the work that your officers have done. The town halls were some of the best town halls that I've ever seen or been able to be a part of. And, you know, to continue that work now is exciting. So I urge you all to stay involved, to get involved in these committees so that we can continue that good work for community plan updates. And I also look forward to meeting with new officers following the election today. So thank you very much. And thank you all again for being here this morning.
Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that. We'll hear from Sarah again in a short while about that. Does that cover the short-term rental issue report, Sarah, or is that a different second?
I'll come back and talk about that again in a minute if you want me
Okay,
to.
yeah, good. I just want to make sure that wasn't.
No, I do have a few updates to share.
Okay, great. So at this time, we'll ask the conflict of interest question of committee officers. So Dave, would you kick off? Do you have any conflict of interest with things on the agenda today?
No conflict of interest.
Okay, Chris?
No conflicts of interest.
Tracy?
No conflict of interest.
And no conflict of interest on my part either. Thank you. So Dave, would you review that or ask for a poll on the April minutes?
Yeah, the April minutes are posted on the NCAC website and available for your review there. We should have them approved by this body, so we would entertain a motion to do that.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the April meeting.
I'll second that. And let me go ahead and launch the question. Okay, the poll has been launched.
Yeah. You agree with this?
right about 100. Still climbing. All right, we've kind of plateaued at 110. I think it's safe to end the poll and share the results. Okay, the results are being shared. Hopefully you can see them.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, well, at this point, we're, Sarah, would you, well, actually, I should say, Dave, do we have any county notices to share that you received?
No county notices to share at this time.
Okay, so we'll turn it back to Sarah to review updates at the county level.
Hey, Rand, real quick, Alexis Tate has some motions that she would like to make. I don't know if we want to take those now or later.
Is it connected to another subject on the agenda, which would be where it might fit? Since I don't know what the
It
motion
doesn't-
is, I don't know.
It
Alexis.
doesn't say.
You want me to talk real quick?
Yeah, just let us know what if it's related to another thing that's on the agenda, we would do it then, but you want to tell me what you want to do.
Happy to have it wherever you feel is appropriate on the agenda, but I have a couple motions I wanted to make regarding subcommittees and a quorum and establishment of a bylaws committee. So wherever you feel that's most appropriate, those are some outstanding issues I think are important to address since there's a leadership vote happening today.
So you want this motion and this discussion to happen before the election of the new officers who would be the ones who would deal with this?
I think it should happen today. I don't think it's imperative if it's before or after the actual election vote.
I would see this being more new business than just business in the middle of a meeting that pertains to things we can't really do. I mean, I think it's a little.
Rand, do we have an agenda item for new business later on?
We could put it on after the community plan update. We have community
Okay.
announcements, but why don't I put it as the new number 8, new business, because I guess I'm hesitant to make motions on things we can't do anything about. It's on the next administration, so it's an odd time. It's between
It's the
between
annual-
administrations.
Sorry, Randall, I didn't mean to interrupt. It's the regular standing meeting. I did send a note to county council and to Sarah to let them know that I wanted to bring these because we don't have a recognized bylaws committee to bring it to. So I wasn't trying to go after a surprise factor, but this is the regular meeting. And I don't really care where it goes on the agenda. But it's
Okay, well, let's do it under new business, and then it's because we won't be able to do anything today about it besides say there's going to be that in the, because when the new administration comes in, automatically there's a bylaws committee formed. It's the first thing they do. So for us to do it now and then them to do it in their first meeting seems a little redundant, but let's do it under new business. And so that's what will happen for number 8 on the agenda. And
sorry, Randall, can I clarify? Because I don't know if everyone else knew that. So we haven't had a bylaws committee because that is instituted at change of election.
we've had one and it's operated the last year.
Who's on the bylaws committee?
Let's see, Tracy, who was
Did we vote for that?
the bylaws committee started at the beginning of last year.
So we did
So
work,
it's been in place and we've done a few changes to bylaws, including creating the communications coordinator and secretary roles, and passed those at the last meeting. So I'm not sure where the idea that we haven't had a bylaws committee meeting is. We just passed we just passed something in the last meeting that was proposed by the bylaws committee.
I've asked in the past and I've never had an answer of who's on the bylaws committee, so my questions that pertain to bylaws, I don't have anywhere to take them. And I do believe the whole membership should hear them because I think that they are good recommendations for moving forward, which is sort of signified in this meeting with the new change of leadership, if there's a change. I'm fine with it being at the end of the meeting. There wasn't a timeline. I just wanted to put it in the box because Chris's instructions were to comment. You have things to say.
Okay. All right. Well, we certainly agree that the bylaws need a lot of work and that will be a main task. So why don't we do as number 8, and that will emphasize even more the need for the bylaws adjustments to be made by the new bylaws committee. So
Thank you. I appreciate the time.
sure. Sarah, would you go ahead, please?
Thank you, Rand. Yes, I would be happy to. Okay, so I do have some updates. So first, some of you have received notice that there will be a planning commission hearing on June 22nd. The Holly Shores, there's some property owners that have a couple of requests. These are not being done administratively and are going back to the planning commission because that was part of a plan development. And any changes that are done have to go through the planning commission. So the link for that, for those of you that might be interested, is located on the community development homepage at the bottom, or you're welcome to show up in person. Our hearings are held at the Port of Tillamook Bay Conference Center. There, where the short-term rental committee has been meeting at 4000 Blunt Boulevard in Tillamook. With that, I'm going to go into the short-term rental stuff last, Randall, just in case anybody has any questions for me. The hazard mitigation plan updates. So as you are aware, we are required to update our county-wide plan. So this is for cities and unincorporated areas of the county once every 5 years to reassess and document any hazards or events that have occurred. And FEMA and Oregon Emergency Management require us to update this document every 5 years so that we remain eligible for disaster funding relief. And so there's a steering committee that's working on that. It's myself, it's representatives from cities, Chief Ader, Randy Thorpe, Chris Lady from Public Works. So we are wrapping that up and the draft is getting ready to go to Oregon Emergency Management for review to see if we need to make any changes before the board adopts it, FEMA blesses it, and we're good for our eligibility for disaster funding relief for the next 5 years. Many of you may not know, I am on the South Tillamook County Emergency Volunteer Corps board. It sounds like we may not be having an emergency preparedness fair this year. However, we are working on some other exciting things to share with communities. And so it's a great board. You know, they're always looking for involvement and participation. So if you're interested in learning more about that board, especially new members that are jumping onto our meetings, please feel free to visit the website for the South Tillamook County Emergency Volunteer Corps. I'm pleased to share that the accessory dwelling unit ordinance is now in effect for unincorporated communities. So working with the Housing Commission on some new documentation information to roll out to communities. With that, we do have 2 openings. One of the openings is a member at large position, and then the other one is representation for a nonprofit. So anyone who's interested in learning more or is interested in applying for one of those 2 positions, you can find the application on the Board of County Commissioner website. With that, with the ADUs, one of the things that has gone through this legislative session is Senate Bill 466. This is a bill that would also allow an opportunity to cite an accessory dwelling unit in the rural residential zone. We'll be working with the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners later this summer to get language amended in our rural residential zone, which is outside of the Neskowin community, but you got a lot of folks in your membership that are in these zones that will be able to hopefully take advantage of that if they would like to construct an ADU on their property. Rolling back to the Housing Commission, the Multifamily Housing Grant Fund process is getting ready to open again. We hope to have that open sometime in September. The commission is working very hard to get prepared for that grant round opening. As many of you know, between the funding that supports that from the short-term rental operator license fee, and then with some support from ARPA funding, we were able to award roughly $750,000 this last year for 6 local workforce housing projects countywide. So if you know anyone who's interested in that or would like to learn more about that, Dave Bennett is on the Housing Commission and the Finance Committee and is doing a great job in helping us prepare for this next grant round. Right now, my job is to work with Commissioner Starr and the County Treasurer to find out how much money we're going to have on the table to help support workforce housing projects. But what it is it's for 3 dwellings or more. And that's the qualifier for that. So if you know anybody, please share that news. With that, we are wrapping up the county's budget season. And so I am pleased to share that Communities Development's budget was accepted as it was proposed. We are finally, after over a decade, getting to the point to where we are fully staffed. We hope that you too, for those of us that are working with us and coming to our counter, are seeing those positive changes in our ability to work quicker and more efficiently because we have staff on hand. We are having to up our fees, increase our fees. We just proposed an updated fee schedule for the building division. That also has to go through the building codes division for the state of Oregon for approval and acceptance. So I would have not raised the fees for the building division of community development in over a decade. So it's been time to raise those fees. Those increases will be posted on the community development webpage. And then sanitation and planning will see some fee increases as well. Although we did a lot of that work last year and all of these new fees were going to affect July 15th. With the biological opinion, I want to thank everyone again for following that. I had some great responses from Neskowin and some really good questions come out of the publications for that. The county has requested cooperating agency status to be at the table as FEMA continues through the environmental review process. We have not received confirmation of being granted cooperating agency status yet, but I hope to continue to work through that with FEMA and we'll come back with updates as that is a matter that will impact the community of Neskowin. And then lastly, talking about the short-term rental program. So the second hearing is scheduled for this coming Tuesday night. So that's June 13th. And that will be again out at the Port of Tillamook Bay in the conference center. The hearing starts at 5:30 and the link to join that hearing is on the bottom of the community development webpage. The packet with the revised draft coming out of the hearing on May 30th is posted on the community development homepage as well. The additions and omissions proposed are in strike-through language and then in italicized. So things that are proposed to be removed are stricken through and then the new language is italicized. The board will be working through that draft again at this coming Tuesday meeting. Because this is the second hearing, the other thing that I did yesterday was submitted an agenda request to resume the conversation of the pause. And so the board will visit with me about the pause Wednesday morning at their regular business meeting. Because of the small size of the commissioner's meeting room, we will be putting a link on the community development homepage. I think the room seats about 20 people. So I would encourage you all, if you want to be able to hear and see what's going on, it might be better to attend and participate in that conversation virtually. So I'm not sure what the direction of the board is going to be, but because of where we're at with the ordinance process, I feel it's appropriate time now to go back and talk to the board about the pause and just quickly to help community members better understand how these two work together. They are two separate matters. So the ordinance amendment process is something that has been underway and does require board adoption. The pause was done as a separate board action and is in a separate board order. So we have to keep them, they're two separate actions that require separate consideration and review. And so the pause in the board order 22-033 is expected to expire on July 1st if no action is taken. So the meeting on the 14th will be really important for that conversation. I'm going to be asking the board for direction of what they would like me to do next in preparation of that approaching July 1st deadline. So please tune in to that meeting if you would like to stay involved. So I think those are my updates as for now. Thank you, Randall. I think you're on mute, Randall.
Sorry about that. Chris, may we get the treasurer's report?
Sure. So no changes in our account balance since we last met in April. The balance is still $1,084. However, I did authorize Zoom to charge $50 for this meeting due to the anticipated participation expected to exceed 100, which it has.
Okay.
That charge will flow through next month, and there'll be a deduction to our checking balance next month. So that's all, Ran, from a treasurer's perspective.
Okay, thank you very much for the update. Okay, so probably the reason most of you are here today, we're going to be going through the voting process here. And Sarah will explain some details on the voting. We would like to involve the county as best we can to make it clear with the results and ask their help so we have a neutral player in going through this process. So go ahead, Sarah, and provide an introduction for voting and voting criteria.
Thank you, Randall. So I was asked by the officers for clarification on voting and voting eligibility, and did vet that through county council. And in review of the bylaws are very specific about who can vote and who has voting rights. And so I'm actually pulling that up right now. I just want to share. So the criteria are that, own, reside in, or a business owner or operator within the CAC, the area of responsibility, the boundary. And so it's must be a legal resident, and you must be at least 18 years of age. Each family member or resident that meets those criteria, or owner or operator of a business, is eligible to vote. There was a follow-up conversation regarding trusts and LLCs. And my recommendation to the CAC today is that because the bylaws do not explicitly state that there is a limitation in that ownership, that anyone who has ownership, irrespective of whether the property is owned by a natural person, it's in a trust or in an LLC, that everyone have that right to vote based on the criteria that are in the bylaws. To Alexis's point, if this is something that the community feels needs to be better refined, then that is certainly something that the bylaws committee should look at. But the criteria are not explicit or specific enough to limit voting to so many people per household or per entity. It just relates to ownership. I did check with Oceanside, the Oceanside CAC, which is the Oceanside Neighborhood Association, and clarified with them that they do not have a limitation either. So I would recommend you stick with your bylaws today. And then to Alexis's point, if this is something that the bylaws committee should work on, that become something that you do in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. So the way we would like to do this is that we would like to, for each position, that we would offer 5 minutes for each candidate to make a statement, and hopefully that's brief. And then we would have a total of 5 minutes to ask, have questions from the floor for the officers before the votes. So we would do categorically, Mark Everett, who is not here. Hopefully you've read his statements. He's running unopposed, but we provide 5 minutes if anyone has comments about that position. Maybe they want to run for office. I don't know, but we need to provide some space for people if that was their intention or if they have questions. Mark can't answer the question, so you don't ask Mark a question. But anyway, so for chair, the candidate is Mark Everett, and I'll push my button for 5 minutes of any discussion about that. And if we don't hear from anyone, then we will move on to the next candidate. Do we have any questions? So I guess Lainey Cook has a question for Sarah. Dave, would you read the question in the chat?
Yeah, this is a question from Lainey with regard to the conflict of interest provisions in the Oregon statute. I'm not sure that's necessarily something related to this election, other than the fact that perhaps an officer who owns an STR might have a conflict of interest in the future with regard to questions relating to STRs. I can certainly read, maybe I should just read the question. The Oregon Conflict of Interest statute states, under Oregon Revised Statute 244.020, an appointee has conflict of interest when participating in an official action which could or would result in a financial benefit or avoidance of detriment to the public official, a relative of the public official, or a business with which either is associated. The people who are running for the officer positions and own an STR have a conflict of interest when participating in an official action due to their financial benefit associated with being an STR owner. How will this be addressed?
Sarah answered a little below there.
Okay, just getting to that. Sarah answers, hello, Lainey. Thank you for the email and comments. This has not been an issue with other CACs and has not been brought up before. The bylaws do not differentiate between owners with or without STRs. My recommendation is to move forward today. I'm happy to visit with counsel about this in the future.
She also added below, Sarah did.
Sarah, okay. Sarah writes, I would also emphasize the CAC is an advisory body to the county commissioners. Taking a step back and recognizing anyone serving as an officer is doing so as a representative of an advisory body. I do not see where there is a financial gain.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if there are no further questions on Mark's time.
Hey,
Oh, Excuse me?
Hey, Rand, it's Chris. Nina Baker stated
Oh.
that she's read Mark's statement and it would be nice to hear from him. Do we know why he's unavailable today?
Yes, Mark's not available because he was already scheduled to give the commencement address at the Forest Grove High School today. So he's giving the commencement address and he can't be in two places at one time. So if that answers the question, we could
Yes,
go.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Nate Lindell, I believe is here. So are you here, Nate?
I am. Thank you, Randall.
Okay, so do you have 5 minutes? You'd like to make a statement or get it open to questions, either way, how you want to start.
Sure. It won't take 5 minutes. That's for sure. Thank you, I guess, for everyone that's taken the time to be here today. It's an important decision, one that I don't take lightly. I serve as a second vice chair to the American Welding Society, which is thousands of members committee. I've spent a lot of time, 20 years on committees, volunteering. I understand the proper procedures of meetings, but ultimately what I'm hearing is finding common ground is the most important thing for this community right now. You know, that comes with trust and time and working together. Those are my goals for serving as this officer position, ultimately being your voice as the community when we work with other agencies. So I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has, unless it's fireworks. That look too dicey.
I have a question. This is Kat Nordland.
Well, Kat, we're putting all the questions in the chat.
Oh, okay. I'll do
Just
that.
having one speaker for all the voices, so we just have an even reading of the comments. Dave, you got
We have a first question here for Nate. Nate, your written statements have been confusing. In your letter to Tillamook County, you say that you bought a house in Neskowin strictly as an investment, which prohibits personal use more than 14 days a year. Therefore, you cannot and will not live in Neskowin. In your statement on the NCAC website, you say, quote, now as a proud homeowner in Neskowin, I have formed countless cherished memories with my beloved family, end quote. How much time do you spend at your Neskowin home? Is your investment return your primary focus for participating in the NCAC?
Great questions. The house was purchased as a 1031 exchange. So it is primarily an investment property. But I believe that whether it's owned for personal reasons and using it as a short-term rental or through a business as a short-term rental, the requirements are just different. So yes, we cannot stay there more than 14 days a year. But we do visit Neskowin very often because the beach. We live in Amity, which is 45 minutes away. So we do spend quite a bit of time there. We're just not allowed to use the house as a vacation rental property.
Okay, Nate, second question. Nate, what issues do you see as most important for the CAC to advise the county on?
Most certainly the STR issue. I mean, that's going to come to a conclusion one way or the other soon. But as Sarah mentioned, the fever pitch is too high. There's big division between opinions on STRs, and it really does come down to common ground, and we have to find common ground somehow. So that will be immediately the thing I would do. I'll also support the chairman's positions on whatever we're working on.
all right. Thank you.
There are no other questions, Rand, in the chat box.
Okay. Let's
Yeah, I have a question if I may. I was curious, Nate.
please to put that in the chat box.
Okay.
That's where we're doing all the questions here. Thank you.
So we have a similar question here, that just came in. Nate, what do you see as the most important aspect of the upcoming community plan process?
Well, certainly I think the current draft or the current version was in 1999. So I'm certain in the last 23 years, there's lots of things that have changed in the community. I would have to read through the entire plan to tell you what is most important, but I'm certain that a revision is due. And then, of course, having some bylaws are important. So I think, that would come at the same time.
Okay, another question just came in. Give me just a moment here.
Only 30 seconds to go here.
Okay. Nate, you stated in a letter to Tillamook County that you don't believe the Neskowin community wants to limit STRs. What is this based on? The recent Neskowin STR survey results show that a majority of Neskowin residents, in fact, do want to limit the percentage of STRs in the community. Since you don't live here and have not attended NCAC meetings, on what basis can you determine the will of this community?
Great question. I base my opinion on what I hear through other organizations that have been formed on Facebook. There's a large membership that are very much in favor of having STRs, and I don't think that there's anyone that wants unlimited STRs. I firmly believe that there are. There's reasons for the documents that are created and the laws and the rules that we follow. I think the common ground is where this is happening. It's just so divided. I don't want to be the one side or the other, but rather the person that helps come together and bring the community to a sensible revisions of documents, whatever they may be. And keep in mind that the officers serve the community, so we're not going to be making decisions that are not part of a vote. Everybody has a vote in this community. We just steer the ship, so it takes the entire group. And I'm very clear on how that works. So it isn't up to the officers to make these decisions. It's up to the community.
Okay, thank you. We ran a little over, but I wanted you to complete your answer. Okay, thank you, Nate.
Yeah, thank you very much.
May we hear from Alex Clark?
Thank you, Ran. Hi, I'm Alex. I've probably met a number of you. I've lived in Neskowin over 5 years, in the South Beach neighborhood, and now up Slab Creek, near the school. My wife and I have a little daughter, and we absolutely love Neskowin. Spent the last 5 years getting really involved, and every level of involvement that I enter, I just kind of fall in love a little more with what we've got here. And it's a community that you can tell people care very deeply about and get involved with. I volunteer a number of ways in the community. I'm a volunteer firefighter, and when I saw how little medical support there was, especially for a community this size that's so busy in the summer, I went and got my EMT license. So I am sometimes first on scene here if anything happens. I love that work. I'm also the treasurer. I'm on the board of the Volunteer Firefighters Association. I'm also on the board of the Farmers Market and a vendor there. And I live in Neskowin and actually work in Amity. So Nate and I have that in common. We probably pass on 18 once in a while. But the community plan is a huge deal. We have to revise it every 25 years, and we're in that process, and a lot of great work has been done. I've read the entire plan. It's 60 pages long. It contains a lot of great information about the history of Neskowin, but also why we have a community plan and what it's supposed to do. The last plan in '99, about 10,000 hours of volunteer work went into it. It's a big project, and it takes in a lot of the community and what we love about it and what we want to change. It's not a single issue plan. There's a lot going on that requires our attention. We have the opportunity to maybe secure our watershed and water rights. There's a lot of there's a lot of stuff going on that the community needs to be involved with. One of my favorite parts of the plan is having everyone in the community vote on what they think the most important issues are. And if you go to the current community plan, there's actually a list of the top 18 items that people think are the most important items for Neskowin. And it's a great list, and we should all kind of look at it and see what see what we all find valuable. So definitely I want to be involved to help the community speak up for itself and find what we value this time around and what we find is the most important. And again, the officers aren't making these decisions. It's just kind of facilitating everyone else who's involved, business owners, property owners, residents, what we want to see going forward. So it's an exciting time, and that's why I want to be involved.
Okay. Thank you, Alex. I don't see any. Oh, here, Alex. Dave, would you read the question?
Alex, understanding that we're not defined by the company we share, do you share your wife's view that STRs are parasites on our community? That you fancy yourselves to be part of us is delusional, disgusting. You lose at life. You lose at being decent humans. That was a quote.
I would say that the most important part of Hillary's question is the first part, which is we are not defined by the company we share. I think you'd be hard pressed to find any husband or wife who agrees with their spouse 100% of the time. My wife is very passionate, and I love that about her, but we are different people. We have quite different views. I don't agree that that STR owners are parasites on the community. I'm sure that in a more calm moment, she'd probably choose different words, but again, that is her view, and we are not the same people.
Okay, that's the time up for that. And anyway, on to Susan Schomburg.
Morning, everyone, and I'm grateful to be here. I'm actually, my flight was delayed for 1 hour. Otherwise, I would not have been able to actually speak. So I'm grateful for the flight delay. As far as history, my family bought property in the 1960s, and it has been an important part of my life. Since the 1960s, we have 2 properties in the village that are owned by myself and my brother and sister. My vision for the NCAC is working collaboratively, using the bylaws to guide our processes, working to preserve what is special about Neskowin, extending friendships to neighbors and to strangers amongst us, to act with integrity, and to listen to each other and without judgment.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any questions in the chat at this time.
Wait.
Okay, I'm waiting. We're almost 4 minutes, so I'll be patient.
Okay, we do have a question for Susan.
Sure.
Susan, I understand you have history in Neskowin. What is your current relationship with the community other than owning 2 houses?
I'm actually moving there full time at the end of this month. And I've served 2 terms on the Neskowin Bylaws Committee. And after my parents passed, before we were settling the estate, when things were kind of in limbo, we had the opportunity to extend to the next Neskowin Beach Golf Course a very below market lease so that they could house their former golf club manager, Kim, for the summer. So we've as a family have, tried to, it's a really special place for us. I mean, we've been there for like over 60 years. And please feel free to ask follow-up questions, Lainey.
Okay, we have one other question here.
Sure.
Susan, what is your favorite part of the current community plan?
The favorite part, well, I'll tell you something that is missing that was in the previous plan, and then I'll tell you something that is my favorite part. Interestingly enough, I did read it, and a piece of it that is not in it that has been edited out is ocean resources, which really caught my attention because we're on the ocean. So this is a piece of the plan that needs to be added back in as far as I'm concerned because of our proximity to the ocean. My favorite part about it right now is the opportunity to update it and to bring it into current and make sure that it benefits all of our community and really be thoughtful about it and inclusive with involvement of as many community members as we can have participate. I think that's the most important thing to keep Neskowin special and protect it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Next question, what do you see as priority issues for our community?
Well, I think that I think one of our big priorities is our roads. Last month, I actually reported to the public resources that there were 2 potholes as you cross into the village and hang a right on Hawk that were right in front of, well, they were so deep that I actually took photos of them with my foot. And I told them I was concerned that in the dark, someone could break their leg. And I asked them which roads we could send out pothole crews to. And that is one of them. And they put it on the list to be repaired. But prior to that on Facebook, I noticed that our local pothole repair team was out there repairing roads. So I don't know if they got that one fixed or not, but I actually reported it. And I think it's important for us to know which roads as a community, not just in the village, but within the Neskowin district, that we can file formal reports because it exposes the county to liability, potential liability, if we don't get them fixed. So I think potholes, or in the 60s and 70s, Susan Howe Lindman's dad had a phrase, he called them chuck holes. And that's what we used to always call them because they make you chuckle as you chuck through them. But at this point, they're deeper than they ever were in my history.
Okay. Thank you, Susan. That's 5 minutes.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry we just can't extend this to all the questions, so we'd have, just keep going on here. So each candidate gets that much time, and so we're trying to make that as equal as possible. So thank you, Susan. May we hear from Jeff Weitzel?
Hey, everybody. Just, can everyone hear me? Just to make sure my microphones are working.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I see Alexis's thumb up. So I'm Jeff Weitzel, and just to be clear, I'm running for secretary since we haven't been mentioning who's running for what while we've been doing these statements. And I know a bunch of you. And for those that don't, I'm your neighbor up on South Beach Road. And I'm going to try and abbreviate my remarks so there's more time for questions. But I'm running because I think the CIC is great. I mean, sometimes we have like difficult experiences in this group, but like it's a beautiful Saturday morning and there's 145 people here to do this. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I am super excited to run for this position because of the upcoming community plan work. And as an unincorporated area, this is one of the best chances we have to like let the county know what we want for our community. And I'm excited because, I'm not excited because this process is complicated, but the process is very complicated. There's 19 land use goals that inform the community plan. And at the end of it, the community plan makes recommendations to the county about how we want zoning changed. And this is complicated stuff. And I'm kind of a nerd and I really like diving into complicated stuff. And I'm really jazzed that I could have the opportunity to help the people of this community navigate this process and come together and decide on a vision for what we want Neskowin to be like for the next decades, and let the county know what that is. And finally, like for my background, I'm a tech guy. I used to be a software engineer. I'm super familiar with Zoom meetings and maintaining websites and information technology in general. And as I understand it, these are skills that the secretary of the CAC could put to good use. So I hope I can count on your vote. And if I am elected, I will do my best to make sure that these meetings run really smoothly and that all of the communication is transparent and that the process is inclusive and that everyone has a great experience. So thank you very much.
All right. Questions? Okay, we don't have any questions at this point. Okay, well, if we don't have any further questions, we'll go back to the
There are questions.
Looks like we've got a question that just came in here. I think that the ones that were pointed to Jeff specifically are your view of priority issues.
So I would say for me as a CIC officer, my number one priority is to collect the community views. Like my views are not really what matters. What matters is what the people think, and that the CAC as a body properly reflects that. But my personal view, I care a lot about the housing situation here in Neskowin. We have a lot of still empty lots, and I think we all have opinions about or what happens with those lots and how they get built up, and what we do with the future of the community. Housing is very important, but like Tillamook County has a housing shortage, and I learned in one of those great town halls from last year that we actually have more space than just about anywhere else in South County to put housing. So that we care about that a lot. I care about the watershed. I care about the quality of the environment. Like there's a bunch of land use goals from among the 19 land use goals from Oregon about the beaches and the dunes and the estuary and resources, and that's all of that stuff has a soft spot in my heart. So that's kind of what I think.
Okay, let's see. Another question with regard to, sorry, Ran.
well, that was 5 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go back up to the top, and we will begin the voting process. Now, I don't see, one of the questions had to do with people who are on phones, and I don't see just a phone number listed anywhere. One of the things we wanted to do was to be able to manage people who are, if they're calling in by phone and can't actually vote, we would do a roll call of those phone calls, but is anyone on this call on a phone that can't vote through the Zoom process?
Yes, Kim Marsh.
Kim Marsh, okay. So Kim, we will do we'll do the vote with a poll, and for each candidate, then we will ask for your vote as a roll call vote so that your vote will be counted. And
hey Ryan, it's Chris.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you, but the polling questions have disappeared for me. It says that there is another user or that I'm logged in on 2 devices, which I'm not. I think the conflict might be because Biff had logged in.
Oh.
And at that time, I think that's when the polling questions disappeared.
Oh, no.
So maybe the workaround is just to include your vote in the chat, and that information is reportable. We just wouldn't have the results instantly. We'd have to go back through.
Yeah. So
Hey,
Biff,
Chris,
do you
sorry,
have any
Chris, did you-
workarounds here from Biff?
I
Hold
just
on.
was able to sign in on another computer, so can you make me co-host, Chris? And I can see if I can see the polls like we did last time.
Sure. Okay, I just made you host.
And I do have the polls.
Awesome.
Okay, that'll be very helpful. Okay, so Kim is the only phone poll we'll have to do, as far as I can tell. So we'd ask to put the first poll up for Mark Everett as chair.
Are we voting for this guy?
You're voting, the chair needs to be voted in. So yes, you'll be voting for Mark when you see the poll. He would be the only one on there.
I'm on the phone here. No,
Oh. Okay, what's your name?
my name is Dale Cruz Marzik.
Okay, so when we finish the polling, I will ask you and Kim separately to voice your vote.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. You got the poll ready there, Biff?
I do, and launching.
Oh, okay, here we go. Mark. Submit.
Yeah.
Got it. Comes up when they put it on.
Okay.
Oh, is that Kim? No. I didn't know who was speaking.
I was able to vote. I'm on the phone, so I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
We have 127 respondents so far, 28. There's 158 people on the call.
And you voted?
I did, and I submitted it.
Good.
Say you're on the phone.
Well, this is Lana Kowalski.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how, can Mike vote for both of us?
no, you just, well.
I'm not on.
You're on a phone. If you're on a phone,
Yeah,
you
I'm on a
can,
phone.
you can vote on the phone if you need to be doing it that way. And if Mike is on a computer and he's able to vote that way, you could vote for as two separate votes.
Can he vote as two separate votes? Because he's on.
No, I don't believe so. I think you have one vote per device.
Okay,
One per device, so
but I'm not on.
I don't know how you vote on the phone. Well, if you stay on the phone, we will ask for your vote after the rest of the votes have been in, and then we'll add those votes to it.
Okay,
All right, so
thank you.
are we there?
We've got 136.
I don't know how to get on.
Okay, well,
136 respondents out of 155. So there could be some people abstaining.
right. If they don't qualify, they could be here, but they couldn't vote. So let's say there's 5 more seconds of voting, and then we're going to do the individual roll call votes. So if you haven't voted by now, that's it. So I'll ask
I'm going
for,
to end the poll.
okay, end the poll, then we'll ask Lana Kowalski. Okay, I'm going to post it. Shouldn't be too much of a question here.
I'm now
Okay.
sharing those results.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you
So,
got,
Mhm.
well, that's good. So he's in.
Other is only 11. Mhm.
Okay.
right, okay, so please mute your things unless you're going to vote now. So, Kim, would you like to vote?
Yeah,
Kim Marsh?
sorry, I was muted. Yeah, yes.
Okay, so you're voting for Mark?
Yes, I'm voting for Mark, sorry.
Okay, thank you. And Lana?
Yes, I'm voting for Mark.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
And those are the only two because the other gentleman Dale said that he was able to vote. Okay, there's our first vote. And okay, so now we go to the next one. So we have Nate Lindahl is running for vice chair. So let's put up that poll for the vice chair. I guess we can do both these
Running.
at the same time, Alex or Nate or other.
I'm sorry you can't vote, Norman.
Just irritates me.
Okay, so somebody's not
Voting.
muted and having a conversation. We ask you to mute unless we ask for your vote. Thank you. How's it looking, Dave? Or I'm not Dave, Biff?
We've got 142 out of 156 voting, and it doesn't look like there's any more votes coming in.
Okay, so Kim, would you express your vote, please?
I would vote for Alex Clark.
Okay, and Lana?
I'm voting for Nate.
Okay. And all other people were able to vote if they were qualified to vote?
Rand, this is Chris. I'm unable to vote. My vote goes towards Alex.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
Dave, can you see the results when I end the poll?
I think so, yes.
I'm
Let's
going to
see.
share them now. There's no more votes coming in.
okay, thank you.
And sharing the results.
Okay,
Can tabulate that.
okay, and then I don't know how we do 2 for Alex and 1 for Nate, but that doesn't look like that's gonna change any result. And this is recorded, so we can proclaim that those 3 votes, Chris for Alex, Kim for Alex, and Lana Kowalski for Nate. Okay. All right, thank you. Everyone see the result that's posted. Okay. All right, and for secretary, let's post the poll. How we doing, Biff?
A couple more votes, and we've got 140 out of 156 answering. I don't see any more votes coming in.
Okay, so Kim, you have who would you like to vote for secretary?
Jeff Weitzel, please.
Okay. Chris?
Jeff.
Okay, and Lana?
Susan.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'm ending the poll.
Ooh.
I was,
Oh,
I couldn't vote for some reason. Susan, please.
Christina was unable to vote.
Susan, please. Yeah, I couldn't find out. I'm on my phone, so apologies. Susan, please.
Okay, so another for Susan. So 2 for Jeff, 2 for Susan.
Sharing the results.
Okay. I think those votes kind of cancel each other out or kind of keep it the same as it is as with 2 for each. So, okay, we have new officers. And I'm not sure if I say congratulations or welcome to the long haul. But first of all, thank you all for being here today and participating in the election. This is a critical part of the next 2 years of activity. And it's very important that you were all here to make this decision together. I hope it's the beginning of a lot of decisions that we make together. Many of the meetings in the community plan are done by consensus. So we're going to have to find that common ground. And hopefully this is a beginning. So with that result, any, let's see, look in the chat. Thank you to the candidates for all, for volunteering to do this work ahead. And I think we will move to the community plan update from Chris. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Rand. So we've received a lot of feedback on the survey from those on the review committee as well as other community members. Not all of the feedback was survey related, but we're more related to the process and what happens after the survey. I've carved out all of the comments received through various formats, such as emails, Word documents, and those that were communicated verbally. And I've dropped them into a spreadsheet so that way they can be tracked as to who they came from and how they were all individually disposed of. We hope to have responses to all of the feedback providers late next month. That would be shared with the review committee. The timing has been impacted due to personal and work-related matters on my side, so I apologize for that. And that's about it. Brad, any questions or any questions from the officer or the other members?
Well, I just let you know that we go through each question and try and sort out exactly how it relates to the community plan and suggestions for, as Chris said. So there'll be not only the survey was being enhanced through the comments of the reviewers, but also the rest of the process will be, we'll share all that information when that work is completed. Okay. Thank you, Chris. So we have this moment now for Alexis to put forward your motion. I'm not sure where it goes, but go ahead and.
It would be slated for next meeting.
Right.
Can I ask a clarification question just for other members if they have things they want to bring forward in the future? And it might need to go to the bylaws committee, which I think we're still unclear if that exists, but I think the question is, what is the process? But anyway, I'll move forward with what I wanted to make a motion on, which I think will really help members who want to get more involved have more autonomy to do that. So I'd like to make a motion that all subcommittees of the NCAC are open to all members and that members can request to be a volunteer on any subcommittee at an NCAC committee meeting through a roll call vote, and that members do not have to be recommended or identified by the NCAC chair to volunteer, but must be voted in by the membership. So currently the bylaws state that the chair identifies any subcommittee members. And I really feel that anybody who wants to be involved in a subcommittee or might have a specialty or experience in a particular subcommittee should have the opportunity to express their interest to the membership and be part of that vote.
Okay. We have a second?
I second the motion.
Okay, so discussion. So one of the things that's interesting in the bylaws, in one place it says that the chair appoints committee members, and another place it says the chair recommends committee members. So it's obviously pretty confusing already. So I think that's a really good point to get these elements of the bylaws very, very clear so that people can participate and understand how committees are formed and that they have accountability to the membership. So that's a great suggestion. So
Rand, just to be sure that we're clear here, Alexis, could you state the motion succinctly so I can make sure I get it recorded correctly?
Yes, and this was my best attempt. Probably Sarah could give more opinion on how to formally put it in, but I wanted to kind of give you context of what I was trying to get at. So my motion is that all subcommittees of the NCAC are open to all NCAC members. That members can request to be a volunteer on any subcommittee at an NCAC committee meeting through a roll call vote. And the members do not have to be recommended or identified by the NCAC chair to volunteer, but must be voted by the membership.
I'm a slow rider. I hope I get this right.
So I'm a little confused by this. So does this mean that the chair does not have any discretion in who is on the committee? Now it's just open to the membership?
No, my intent.
Not only to open for wanting to be on a committee, but for deciding how many people are on the committee and how big the committee is and who's on it.
So my intent, Randall, was that if there was a committee, a subcommittee that a member wanted to participate in, that they have an opportunity to express that and for the membership to vote on that person. So I'll use a personal example. I've expressed a lot of interest in the community plan and being a part of that. And I don't have an opportunity to share that with the rest of the membership, and it lies with the chair. So even though you and I have had personal conversations about it, that's where it ends. So if there are people out there who are interested or they want to even, join a subcommittee that exists, I believe they should be able to speak to the membership about it. Because I think that there's just a lot of that work that's not clearly stated in the bylaws currently. I would hate for people to want to be involved in issues that pertain to our community and not have an opportunity to express that. And I don't see a clear path for that currently.
Okay. There are a lot of questions in the chat here.
There are a number of us with hands raised also.
Right. Where do we want to start here?
Just to clarify, I think it should be voted on. I'm not saying anyone can just say, hey, I'm going to be on this committee. Ultimately, the membership should absolutely decide. But I'm saying right now, there's not a forum for someone to express interest in a subcommittee if they want to join.
Right. This could be an extremely long discussion.
I move to postpone, move this motion to the bylaws committee that will be established at the August meeting. And that's a priority motion over the main motion.
I disagree because we don't have a bylaws committee. And if someone was interested in being on the bylaws committee and the bylaws committee is the deciding board or group, that's a conflict.
Well, I made a previous motion in the chat window to delay consideration of this vote till we get more information.
I think it's Well, first of all, in my early meetings, I learned we might bring this up and get as far as a motion, but we table it for the next meeting so people have a chance to understand what it is and what the implications are rather than taking a quick vote. So I think we can keep, I'm not exactly clear on how to table the issue, but that's what I would recommend is accepting this motion, but tabling it and presenting it to the August meeting for the bylaws committee, and that has yet to be composed. So we'll pass this or, excuse me?
That is essentially at 11:22 what I said.
Okay. Thank you, Thomas.
Could we have Sarah, sorry, Randall, I didn't mean to interrupt, but could we have Sarah weigh in on this, please?
Sure, I'd love it if Sarah gave us
And
the
I also
perspective on where to put this.
I also want to just address Candace's question in the box. There's already an election for subcommittees, or according to the current bylaws, there's supposed to be. That's not always been followed. But so it wouldn't create extra work to have another election for subcommittees. That's a process that's supposed to already exist. It would just give any member an opportunity to put their name in as an interested party.
Do you like me to? So I think Alexis brings up a great motion and proposal. I would offer that, especially now that we have a new series of officers coming in, and that the bylaws committee is part of the setting up of the structure moving forward, that Alexis, that we do table this to an upcoming meeting. In the meantime, I will work with county council to ensure that that process, as it will unfold, meets the comfort and the level of transparency of the community as a whole. But I am, I do think it can be tabled, but I do like the idea and appreciate that of an open process for inclusivity in subcommittees and letting the community be a part of the decision of who should be on committees. So if that's okay with everyone, I think that it can wait. Randall, I did have another question that came to me directly. So just to confirm with the voting that basically there was only one time per each person to vote on each poll. So getting back to the conversation of multiple ownership of properties, or people having the ability to vote more than once for each poll, that the way the system is set up on your computer, you get one chance to vote at each poll. Is that correct? Or maybe that's for Beth and Chris.
My understanding is, yes, there's one vote per person attending the meeting on a device. One vote for device, per device.
And then should a member of the community want to actually see the results, the detailed results, is that something that can be made available?
Chris, do you get that?
Yes, it should be part of the minutes, right? We can make that part of the minutes, Dave.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
I did have a question by one of the membership that asked me not to publish their, they gave a email address and a home address, and they asked that not be published. And I said, we don't share that information as a policy. So would it just be the individual name and the vote, as opposed to the full sharing of all the registration information and all that? I mean, I think that could be reviewed by a criteria committee or something like that, but I wouldn't think we would publish for everyone all the addresses and all the contact info. That seems a little unnecessary as far as publishing results. But I think if we did a vote and the name of the person who voted, I think that seems to be private enough that it's reasonable to share that. Does that seem reasonable?
I think so. And I would say if anybody has any concerns about that, then, that would be something else to share with the bylaws committee to have them evaluate. And of course, county council reviews any amendments to your bylaws. Just, I think the more important piece of that is just reassuring that, once you vote on a device, you're registered on that device, you get one vote, and then your option to vote again, there isn't one.
Right.
So thank you. I appreciate
And
that.
Sarah, this is Chris. I think under the Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, that anybody can obtain that information through the county. So maybe we just, post the voting results, and anybody that has questions about it can go through the FOIA process of obtaining, further detail if necessary.
Sure.
Ran, I withdraw my motion. I wasn't aware of the one in the chat. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Sometimes we have the South County Emergency Services, excuse me, representative on. Oh,
Randall,
what? This?
I'm sorry to interrupt. I had two motions. Can I please bring the other up and then we can discuss it at the next meeting, or you can delay me or whatever.
We're in the middle of a motion now. I'm sorry, I'm putting my parliamentarian hat. I don't think your original motion's been handled yet, Alexis.
And I believe that a motion to table takes priority and is not debatable.
Right, but we haven't voted.
But there's been a motion and a second to table it.
Right, we have to vote.
Okay, I don't think we have a poll set up for that. You can see how problematic it is if we don't have something on the agenda and we have a motion and need a vote on it. We're not really set up to do that for 156 people to take a vote. So we're going to have to do this.
I notified the county council and Sarah that I wanted to bring this because there isn't a bylaws committee. So I'm not trying to make everybody's life difficult. I'm just trying to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to participate in these meetings.
Right. And I think that's a very valid subject. It's just a rough thing to handle in this meeting.
I understand. It's just concerning when you're saying you're going to defer it to the bylaws committee that doesn't exist, when my motion is to call for more inclusive subcommittees, of which the bylaws committee is one. So I really have questions about who is instituting the bylaws committee, because as it comes up time and time again, there are continual conflicts of the bylaws, complete dismissal of the bylaws in this group. And to Sarah's point, I believe a lot of that has caused confusion and division in the group. So I'm trying to, as a member, provide potential motions to help more inclusivity and more transparency and accountability. So when you defer my motion to a committee that doesn't exist, that we don't know who assigns the committee, it is concerning to me.
Well, I
want
can
to
say
echo
is,
that concern. I echo that concern, and it just seems like it's being tabled, and who's going to hear it because there's no bylaws committee.
well, this is the end of one administration in about 5 minutes, I hope. And you have a new administration who can address creating a bylaws committee, which is what you do as a chair in your first meeting. And that bylaw committee should be functional for the entire year as they deal with the different issues that come up. So to give the information to the chair who's got 5 minutes left in their administration and to get a vote on something that was not on the agenda is very problematic logistically. And it's going to me, who I understand your frustrations, but I can't do anything about it after the next 5 minutes. So it seems much more productive to open the next meeting and put these motions forth, get it on the agenda before the next meeting, and have the next administration deal with these very important issues.
Randall, I agree with you. I'm completely comfortable with that. I thought that you were telling me it was going to be deferred to the non-existent bylaws committee. I would like my motion to be considered and voted on before the new bylaws committee is established. If that's what you're suggesting, we're saying the same thing, and I'm thrilled with that.
To be clear, my motion was to delay, was not to refer it to another committee.
Yeah.
So it still stays in this committee. in this forum.
Right. So this is something that we, in the notes of the meeting, Elena?
Yes, regarding this issue, it seems like the key here is to be able to have for the next meeting, sort of like a list of things to vote on that people can consider before the meeting and come with sort of like a understanding of what they're going to be voting on. I am wondering if there can be, and now I'm putting perhaps work on the new members away, you know, in the next 2 months, maybe 2 weeks out, for there to be sort of like a series of like, maybe this is how we could set up so people know what the process is to be on a committee. Have exactly what Alexis said be one of the options. And then perhaps there are more details that people could vote on as well, like that, because Alexis says didn't have a time or who you talk to be, you know, to know that there's a committee coming up. And it's hard to like decide to be on a committee without knowing that there's something coming up. In fact, when I got on the survey committee, it was because I heard about the survey and I said, hey, I'd love to offer comments because I care about the community plan. But I didn't have, and I didn't know that there was a survey committee going to be happening at that time. I just offered, and then it was voted on. Randall asked me if I wanted to be on the survey committee, and I said, well, if you need somebody, okay. And then it was voted on at the meeting, but like the process wasn't clear to me, even though I ended up somehow on the committee. So I'm wondering if we can have something like 2 weeks before the meeting so that people know what they're going to be voting on.
I agree. So I will advise Mark as outgoing chair to view the recording of this meeting so that he has an idea what he needs to set up for the next meeting. So the agenda includes this, and he may in fact have conversations with you, Alexis, and anyone else who wants to have something be on the agenda for that meeting. And you can advise him directly so that he can be aware of what some business is for the bylaws committee and have that in mind going into the meeting.
So if it's a problem with voting, although I think we could raise hands or whatever, Alexis, would you be willing to withdraw your motion and bring it up to Mark? Since it sounded like you'd be willing to have that happen anyway.
Whatever the clearest path is for it to be moved to the next meeting's agenda for a vote, I'm comfortable with. But I do have a clarification question, kind of going off of what Helena said. And I don't know if we have it in the existing bylaws, but is there a mandatory agenda posting period? Does anybody know? Randall, do you know? Because I know like I didn't get an agenda for this meeting. I think that does address some of the questions that Helena raised as well. But my intent was just, of course, that the body votes on this motion. I'm not a parliamentarian, and Nancy, I really hope that they put you on the subcommittee for bylaws because I think you're awesome.
I would actually like to be on it.
I think you're awesome. So if I have any power, please put Nancy up for vote on that. And that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, is when we see people in the membership who have clear talents for an area that we're working on, I'd love them to have the opportunity to raise their hand. So if that moves to the next meeting and we all get to vote on it, that's great. I just wanted it to be motioned before another committee is formed. And it sounds like the first committee that's going to be formed is the subcommittee. So if we could address it before that, I'm happy to do that in whatever way.
Yeah, because it sounds like you have a great suggestion.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, as I said, Mark is going to view this recording and it will be very clear to him who some very good people would be to serve, to answer these questions and to put this on the next agenda. Jeff, do you have a comment?
Yeah, as the incoming secretary, I just wanted to say, I think, so the process of creating the bylaws committee, which I just checked, is it's the bylaws just say the chair nominates the people, but I will encourage Mark to ask for volunteers from the community so that we can, in an ad hoc fashion, address Alexis's concern of getting community involvement. But the maximum number is 5. So as the chair is going to have to figure out a way to pick that initial 5, and then any changes to that will have to go through the bylaws committee and then be voted on by the group. So there's a process for doing this, and as an officer, I'm going to try and make sure that we get through that as smooth as possible. So
Thank you. And it's also been pointed out that if you have a question of the NCAC, you can always write that to info at Neskowin CAC, and the officers do get those forwarded to them so they can address those questions and bring those onto the agendas of upcoming meetings. So I feel confident that I can guarantee you will be heard, Alexis, and this will be done. And Mark can address that specifically as the new chair.
and one more thing regarding agendas. I don't know exactly what it says in the bylaws, but I will try and I will make sure that agendas go out before the meetings and that they're in the emails. So thanks.
Yes.
Jeff, could one of the suggestions we make be that we add to the bylaws a 2-week mandatory notice period? Because I think, just before the meeting, if, to Helena's point, if you see it the day before, you might not have the time to properly be prepared to make a vote or to discuss.
I'll just do that, and we can take that to the bylaws committee through the proper process, but it sounds great.
Thank you.
And just for reality check, you can post an agenda, but there may be things that come up within a day or two of the meeting that need to be added to the agenda, but that's just a detail. Okay, Tom, you have a comment as well, or?
I was just going to say, Alexis, so that it's clear, and I know you intend to do this, but write out your motions, submit them to the NCAC 2 weeks in advance. And from what I've heard, Jeff will see that they're posted, and then we can go from there. And whatever the motions are.
Thank you, Tom. I did do that 2 weeks ahead of time, and I did email it to Sarah and to County Council because we didn't have a bylaws committee. So if there's a different process, it'd be good for everybody to know, and I'll make sure I follow that in the future. But I don't plan to have any more. I just feel really passionately about us being more inclusive to folks who want to join subcommittees.
Tracy, did you have your hand up and then not, or is not? I got you on.
Yeah, I took my hand down. I was just going to say that the agenda items are to be sent to the chair.
Yeah.
So, and he can allow those items to be sent up to 3 days before a meeting. So the agenda is a kind of a work in progress up until that point. But yeah, any items that somebody wants on the agenda, any motions can be sent straight to the chair.
Yeah, I didn't get any motion from you, Alexis, so that's why I wasn't on the agenda.
Yeah, and they are supposed to be sent to the chair.
Yeah. Okay. So are we fine moving forward with this information in hand?
Brand?
Yes.
Brand, this is Guy. Is just listening here, it seems that the motion that everybody's talking about is really a change in the bylaws, because we already have in the bylaws ways in which committee members are appointed, and I think everybody agrees it needs to be different. Well, not everybody, I can't say that, but many people think it should be different. Is there a process for changing the bylaws? I mean, I felt right away uncomfortable in that we could make a change to the bylaws here even today without notice, without having to go to a committee. And I also am concerned that we don't want members of the CAC individually contacting committees with agenda items to take up. It seems that any item that we want a committee to take up should be first brought to the CAC and then agreed to be sent to a committee for consideration. I think it would be things would get out of hand if we had individual members contacting committees with ideas or proposals to change. So, but what is and I don't have the bylaws in front of me, but to make a change in the bylaws as we're proposing here, what is the process?
It goes to the bylaws committee, which then reviews that and brings recommendation to the membership, and then the membership votes on the change.
And there are notices have to be given properly in proper time. And so it comes to the CAC first, it goes to the bylaws committee comes back with a recommendation. I don't know about the notice requirements, but it seems that there's a process that we need to go through to change the bylaws that I think we have to be careful about.
Yeah, it's usually though when the recommendation is made, then people mull it over, and in the next meeting they would make a vote.
Correct. I think that's the way it goes. Thank you.
I believe there's a motion on the table, is mine. And I would be happy with a voice vote if anybody wants to continue this debate. That's fine. Otherwise, we should close. This is interesting discussion. We should have it. We need to close the motion.
I don't think my point is that this motion is not appropriate at all because we're not following the process to change the bylaws. And so,
Guy, my motion is to table this discussion.
Right, I understand, but it's hard to table a motion that's inappropriately brought anyways, in my mind. So I just think we just drop it.
No, we can't just drop it. It's a motion. Once a motion is in effect, it remains in effect.
All right.
Unless it's withdrawn.
There's nothing in the bylaws that says you can't bring a motion to a meeting and that it has to be ahead of time. That's the preference, but it's not in the bylaws, and we didn't have a bylaws committee guy. And so I sent it to county council and to Sarah. So
why would you, I guess we don't want to get into discussion here, I guess, of this, but I don't understand what the process was that the process that you followed doesn't seem that within how we changed the bylaws.
There's not a documented process. So I think you're spot on that. We absolutely need to update the bylaws to have a clear and laid out process for if you want to bring a motion, how that is done. Just resting it in the hands of one person on the NCAC leadership may or may not bring it forward. So there should be a documented process. I agree.
So Thomas, to avoid a vote, would you be willing to withdraw your motion if Alexis is willing to withdraw hers and resubmit?
Yes.
Alexis, are you willing to withdraw yours for now and resubmit?
If someone can clearly define for me the process to resubmit.
So you would be sending a note to Mark and asking it to be put on the agenda.
Right.
Yes, I'm comfortable with that. I will resend.
Okay.
Okay.
And
withdraw.
Thomas, are you willing? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you all. Thank you, Nancy, for managing the clumsiness that has incurred here. So with that, starting to say if there's a South County Emergency Services person here to share any updates from that. Barring that, I would make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, we have a second. We're gonna have to do this one by
Voice vote.
voice vote. Anyone who doesn't want to adjourn, please speak up at this moment. Hearing no nays. We stand adjourned.
Thank you, Ran and Chris. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ran and Chris.
Thank you all.
Time for the farmer's market.
All right. I do.